I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.
Hello and welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast, part of the 90 Min Football Network. As ever, I'm your host, Harry Symeou. Happy Saturday. Hope you're all well. The sun is shining here in London town. And it's actually quite nice not to have an Arsenal game today, to be able to kind of sit back, enjoy. I'm not going to say I'm going to enjoy the 3 o'clock games because they're pretty dire, all of them, to be honest. But we've got the big game between Newcastle and Liverpool at 12:30 p.m. today. Has big implications, of course, on the title race. And then later on, Manchester City travel to a Leeds side who are in danger of being sucked back into the relegation fight. So there's a couple of really decent games today. And I'm looking forward to kind of parking all the stress and anxiety that comes with the Arsenal and just sitting down. I'll be in the garden in between. I'll be sipping on my iced coffee. I'll be chilling out and I'll be watching the football from a distance, which is always nice to do every once in a while. Hope you're all good. Lots of you in the live chat already. We've only been live for a minute, which is incredible. So let me say a few hellos before we dive into today's press review. Whoops, should probably put my phone on silent. How professional of me. Big hello to Henry. To Mr. Lee, to Andy, who says, hurry up, Harry, come on, finished your Weetabix yet? I don't eat Weetabix. I'm not a big fan. Now and again in the winter with some hot milk, I don't mind it, but I'm not a massive Weetabix person. I'm not even a big breakfast person, to be honest with you. Let's see what else we've got. Big hello to Sko, to Luke Williams, to Vinny. How you doing, mate? To Rakeem. Schrodinger's quite excited about this news, and I'm guessing you've looked at the title and the thumbnail, which concerns Paulo Dybala. Henrik mentions the North London Forever song, which is being bandied around on Twitter as Arsenal's potential new anthem. Big hello to Mafia Boss, to Matt, to Eric, to Julian, to Josh, to Harold, to Craig, to Tony. I hope you're all well. Tailwood Studio says, is it just my end or is the audio and visual out of sync? I don't know about that. It's normally okay. But let me know. Do let me know if it's a problem that you're all experiencing. Not sure there's an awful lot I can do about it right now. But yeah, let me know. Big hello to Russ as well and to Highbury Arsenal. Okay, without further ado then, let's get into the big story because this is something that has interested a lot of Arsenal fans. It's kind of led a lot of Arsenal fans' ears to just prop up. Paulo Dybala, of course, being linked with a move to Arsenal. Now, it's being reported by multiple outlets that the Arsenal are considering a move, are planning a move, are willing to start talks with Paulo Dybala's representatives, given that the Argentine has left or will leave Juventus at the end of the season. It was announced a little while ago that he won't be signing a contract extension. And of course, his current deal is due to expire on June 30th. He is free to talk to other clubs about his future. And I just wanted to give you guys my thoughts on Paulo Dybala, a player who I've watched a lot of. I'm a big Serie A fan, as you guys will know, and I've watched a fair bit of him over the years. He's someone I've got quite a strong view on, a strong opinion on. And he's somebody that I'd actually like to see Arsenal move for. But there are a few concerns. And it would be wrong not to consider these things when sort of making that decision as a football club. So, right, let's get into it. So, I guess a good place to start is why hasn't it worked for Paulo Dybala at Juventus? That's what somebody asked me on Twitter this morning. And the answer is, I don't know that you can say it hasn't worked. I think that it has worked to a point. I just think that there's more in Paulo Dybala and he could have done more and he could have gone to a higher level and he could have been one of the world's very, very best. I genuinely believe that. I think talent-wise, he's got that. So, okay, let's rephrase the question a little bit. Why do people feel, or why is it perceived that Paulo Dybala hasn't done very well at Juventus, and why is it perceived that he hasn't reached his maximum? I think the fact that he's been in and out of the team so much has got to be, the big factor here. It's got to be the thing that people look at, and it kind of leads them to be concerned about how he'd fare at Arsenal. Look, when a player becomes available on a free transfer, a lot of the time it's for a reason. A lot of the time it's because they've not quite made it at that football club. It's not quite worked out. They've not wanted to commit. The club obviously haven't bent over backwards to make him stay. They haven't gone above and beyond to try and persuade him. They haven't given him an offer that is too good to refuse. So a lot of the time when a player is available on a free transfer, there's a reason for it, right? It's very rare that there's a player without any black marks against his name who becomes available on a free transfer. There's always something. And I think with Paulo Dybala, the thing that I think has probably led to Juventus being a little bit cautious and being a little bit wary at a time where they as a football club really do need to rebuild. They lost Cristiano Ronaldo. They've not coped with that because they didn't have, in my opinion, the structure in place to deal with it. But I think when it comes to Paulo Dybala, the big problem and the thing that's plagued his Juventus career throughout is injuries. And it's impossible to ignore his injury record. Now, I'm going to bring up his injury history on Transfermarkt for you guys to see. Now, look how many. Now, this only goes back to 16-17 season, groin injury, kept him out for 7 days. 17-18, just the one hamstring injury that kept him out for just over a month. But then look from 18-19 onwards. This guy has picked up so many injuries. And they're not, a couple of days out, 3 days out, 4 days out. Some of them are really extended periods of time. He was out with coronavirus reportedly for 46 days. 46 days. I don't know if that's been taken into account, the time that football wasn't being played. I'm not really sure how they've worked that out. So maybe that's not quite accurate. But there's a few unknown injuries on there, 21 days, 10 days. Medial collateral ligament injury, which kept him out for 80 days. There's a muscular problem, 27 days. Another muscular problem this season, 23 days. Thigh problem this season, 13 days. And then a problem with the hip flexor, which kept him out between March 4th and March 15th, another 11 days. So the big issue, I think, with Paulo Dybala, or the big red flag, or the big worry, or the big concern should be about his injury record. He's someone that's shown that he struggles to stay fit over the period of a season. And I've seen in the chat, John says, injuries, you say, seems made for Arsenal. Yeah, look, in that sense, it feels like he would fit right in, but that's not the type of player we're looking for at the moment. We need players who can, who can be reliable. We talk a lot about Thomas Partey. We talk a lot about Kieran Tierney, their importance to the side. And of course, they're super important to the side, but they're just not fit enough of the time. And it's a big, big problem. And it's a big, big issue for us. When you start to rely on players who just can't stay fit, you end up a lot of the time having to put out fires, having to plug holes, and it can really damage and affect the team, as well as imbalance the rest of the team, because you're trying to shift things around. And sometimes you can overthink it in terms of how exactly you're going to cope with those things. So the red flag for me around Paulo Dybala is the injuries and the fact that he seems to break down so damn often. And I think that's a big, big reason why his Juventus career is perceived widely as having not really hit the heights that we all thought he was capable of. And if you look at actually his statistics by club, so you break down his Juventus career in total, this suggests that actually when he is fit, when he is available, he is a really, really big asset. He's played for Juventus 288 times and scored 114 goals, contributed 48 assists. That's a really decent return for a player who a lot of people believe is not an out-and-out centre forward. But the reason I think a lot of clubs are circling Paulo Dybala is because of the fact he's available on a free transfer. And in a lot of cases, the COVID pandemic is still having a knock-on effect on football clubs all around the world, all around the continent. But with Paulo Dybala, what you've got is an opportunity to do a deal that, if you get the terms right, is a deal that represents low risk. But the reward that you could potentially get if Paulo Dybala does stay fit, if he does contribute, if he does impact your season, is huge. And it's a bit like the Willian deal, where it wasn't a player coming in for us to build our team around. It was another option. It was bringing in someone with great experience, with great pedigree, with great quality, who could come in and provide the kind of support that our young core need, but also help them on the training ground, help them with experience. I think for me that that Paulo Dybala is somebody that really does appeal to me. But as I keep saying, I am worried about how fit he can stay. So whether this is a good deal for Arsenal or not, for me, depends on what the terms are. What's the signing on fee going to be? We know nowadays, in particular with free transfers, that players and their representatives are quite big on the whole signing on fee thing. That it's essentially a transfer fee that you don't pay to the club, but you pay to the player to convince him that your club is the one that he should go to. We've seen it with Antonio Rudiger recently. We've seen Real Madrid swoop in and offer Antonio Rudiger a big signing on fee to take him away from Chelsea. And these signing on fees are significant. So you can't look at it as just a free transfer, because in my opinion, you're probably going to have to lay out a few million quid to sort of sweeten him up to get the deal done. Plus, when they're free, they tend to ask for more wages, and they tend to feel that they can get more wages out of a football club because of the absence of a transfer fee in the transaction. So I think that this would still be a pretty significant investment. Now, Arsenal made a big investment financially when you think about it being a free transfer on Willian, given the wages we paid him, given the signing on fee that was rumoured. What I praise Arsenal for in that is that when they realised it wasn't working, they cut their ties pretty quickly. And they were able to do that. But that's not always going to be the case. Sometimes the player's going to dig his heels in, and sometimes the player's going to make your life difficult in terms of getting rid of them. And you could end up stuck with someone who isn't offering anything to the team, but is a real drain on resources. And thankfully, as I keep saying, the club and Willian, and credit to Willian as well, right? Because he didn't have to agree to have that contract terminated. He didn't have to agree to walk away, but he did. And Arsenal were able to not rectify the mistake and not recuperate money they'd already outlaid, but were able to reduce the impact of what was clearly a bad investment. And although I really rate Paulo Dybala, and he's at a younger age, of course, than Willian, I'm still worried about A, adaptation to the Premier League, and B, I'm worried about how much this is going to cost us and whether he can stay fit enough to justify that cost at a time where we clearly do need to push on. So I've mentioned his stats and his goal return and his assist return at Juventus, which is pretty impressive. But what does Paulo Dybala look like as a player, and how does he fit into this current system? Well, it's interesting for me because I don't think that Paulo Dybala can be the only option. I don't think that Paulo Dybala is somebody that we can sign and trust to play up front week in, week out for this Arsenal side. I think we've got a lot of work to do in the summer. I think there's a lot of business that we need to do. And I think we need to make sure that we spend the money that we do have available to us wisely. So in terms of his profile, what would he bring to the team? Well, for me, Paulo Dybala is not an out-and-out number 9. That's not what he does. He's not a penalty box striker, really. He's not a poacher, really. He's not someone who's going to be lurking on the edge of the 6-yard box waiting for cutbacks. He's somebody who's a little bit more proactive, and he's quite happy, actually, to drop back into those holes in the way that Alexander Lacazette does, but I believe with a lot more technical ability and a lot more quality. Now, I've spoken throughout the season about how Lacazette sometimes vacating those spaces actually gives room and opportunity for the likes of Saka, Martinelli, Smith Rowe to drift in from the wide areas and make things happen. So in one sense, it's a good thing. But sometimes I feel like we need a focal point as well. And I feel like that's something that's missing from this Arsenal side. So if you're going to go out and get Paulo Dybala, if you think that because he's available in a free transfer and the finances make sense that you can bring in Paulo Dybala and somebody else, then go for it. If you think it's worth the risk, have a stab at it. Let's see how it goes. But he can't be the only option because, in my opinion, we'd still be missing a lot of the things that we're currently missing in Lacazette or in Nketiah when they play up top. But this is a guy who can play quite comfortably anywhere across the front line. He can drop into that 10 position in the absence of Martin Odegaard. He could play from the left. He's a left-footed player. He can play from the right because he's very adept at cutting inside. And he can play as a false 9. So if Mikel Arteta was thinking about adding a striker and a winger, well, Paulo Dybala perhaps ticks multiple boxes and could potentially come in and be a backup striker to whoever it is that we do go and sign to play that role, I think, week in, week out. But Dybala can be that when we need him to be that, or when the game state suits that, or when a particular fixture requires a false nine, if you want to call it that. But also somebody who can back us up in the wide areas, who can back up Saka when he needs a rest, when he's knackered, who can back up Martinelli, who can back up Emile Smith-Rowe. We think, and there's a chance that Nicolas Pepe may leave the club. Look, the thing that jumps out to me, though, here is that this, in a way, contradicts what we saw last summer in terms of the way we, the way that we did our business, the way that we conducted our business, the way that we identified talents of a certain age and went big on those. This would contradict that. But again, it's a bit like the Willian transfer where it's free. And you might feel that, even as I've mentioned, the fact that you do have to put a little bit more money down than maybe some people would think or imagine, it still might bring you the reward that justifies the risk. And that's the question that Mikel Arteta and Arsenal have to ask themselves. I am expecting Arsenal this season to be a little bit more flexible on what types of age profile in player that they go for. Now, as I keep saying, last summer was 21s to 24s. That was the remit. Players who are relatively experienced, who have that basis now upon which they can take their careers to the next level and can help Arsenal go to the next level, who are long-term investments, who have potential to be sold on in the future if needs be. Paulo Dybala isn't that, but Paulo Dybala does kind of fall into the category of player that Edu was talking about when he said that, okay, we've done that big recruitment drive, we've re-established, we've rebuilt the core, and now it's about adding experienced players. He's certainly experienced. I mean, there's no doubt about that. You're talking about someone with over 50 appearances in the Champions League. He's got 32 caps for Argentina as well. This is a really experienced player who, at 28 years old, I think still has quite a bit to offer, providing you can keep him fit. That is the big risk. That is the big doubt for me. There's no doubt about his quality. There's no doubt about his technical ability. There's no doubt about what he can bring to the table when he's available and when he's out on the pitch. But, whether he can stay fit, whether he can adapt to the Premier League quick enough for him to be, a valuable asset to us. And as I keep saying, justify the investment that would be required. I don't know. There are going to be a lot of clubs circling around Paulo Dybala because of the talent that he has, because of what a superstar he is, because of the commerciality of it, because of all of those things. He is somebody who will have a lot of suitors this summer. We also know that he was very, very close to joining Tottenham Hotspur, a little while ago. And there was a big hiccup in the sort of the negotiations, which was with regards to his personal image rights, which again could be a potential problem in these negotiations if indeed Arsenal are involved in them. So there's all those things in the back of my mind. So look, the pros, let me summarize it, because I know I've been going a bit back and forward because I've just sort of been downloading my thoughts straight to you guys. I haven't really sat down and planned anything out on this. I'm just sort of downloading everything that's going through my mind. But the pros of signing Paulo Dybala are: he's a top quality operator. He's technically brilliant. He's versatile across the front line and would add a much needed experience and quality to a front line that is largely young, largely inexperienced, and will at times be inconsistent. The cons are he's not an out-and-out number 9, which means you probably still need to go out and get a number 9. He's going to want big money. There's probably going to be a substantial signing on fee involved. And his injury record makes concerning reading, if you like. So those are the pros. Those are the cons of Paulo Dybala. For me, it would depend on how much money we've got this summer. It would depend on what he wants, what the signing on fee would be. And I would weigh up the risk against the potential reward and decide on that basis. But if he's the only option that Arsenal are able to go and get in the event that he's the one that they choose, then I don't want him. I want him as a backup. I want him as someone who is an addition rather than the be-all and end-all. I don't want him to be the centre forward that starts week in, week out. I like the fact that he can play, as I keep saying, anywhere across the front line. And I think that will come in handy, particularly if Nicolas Pepe leaves this summer as well. So I like that about him, and this idea of picking up Paulo Dybala on a free transfer, it certainly does appeal to me, but we need to do some further business as well. Look, this is the report, this is the rumor, this is the story going around. It's been reported by multiple outlets. I don't know how true it is, I don't know how concrete it is, but I thought it was worth discussing on today's press review. Going to take some of your thoughts and some of your questions on Paulo Dybala and that particular subject in just a second. Okay, welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Let's get some of your thoughts on Paulo Dybala. Would you like to see him come to Arsenal this summer? Of course, the player, as we've said, is available on a free transfer this summer. Lots of people asking if I'd prefer Dybala or Gabriel Jesus in the chat. I've seen that question come up 3 or 4 times. Do you prefer Dybala to Gabriel Jesus? The answer is no. No. If we can only get one, I'd go with Gabriel Jesus. I really would. I think he's a better fit. I think he's got so much to offer. And I think he's somebody who's proven himself already in the Premier League. Not that that's the be all and end all, but has a much better injury record, has a much better, has a much higher ceiling because of the stage that his career is at, I think. So, yeah, I think that Gabriel Jesus would be a perfect fit for Arsenal. I'd definitely be trying to do that deal. But if we could pick up Dybala on a free transfer in addition, then I wount't be against that. Halo Mateus says, afternoon, I just read the whole long interview with Arteta done by Sky Sports. I can't see that Dybala fits into Arsenal at the age and the wages he's on. I may be wrong. Now, that interview is a really interesting interview, but you can also listen to it on podcast format, which is what I did. I was going for a walk this morning and I fancied listening to it as opposed to reading it. And we'll touch on some of the points when we sort of do another show that isn't sort of transfer or press related. We'll touch on some of the comments that Mikel Arteta made, because I think there's some interesting bits in there. If you haven't checked it out, go over to Sky Sports and have a look. Luke Williams says, I feel there are better options from Arsenal for where we are right now. Dybala's not the answer. Tony Flowers says, I can't believe how much of a skinflint club I support. No wonder we're losers. What do you mean by that? I'm not really sure what you mean by that. The DK Lotus says, is Dybala, in your opinion, someone that would challenge in the City and Liverpool sides? I think he's got the talent. But one of the other question marks that I probably should have highlighted a little bit earlier on is, can he play the high intensity pressing game that he's going to be asked to play? Don't know. That's another thing you got to think about. Henry Mize says we should sign Sabitzer instead of Dybala. Tony Flowers says we should buy Haaland, but we won't. This is what gets on my nerves, okay, Tony? And it's not personal to you, mate, so please don't take it that way. But everybody says we should buy Dybala. We should buy Dybala. I beg your pardon. We should buy Haaland. We should buy Haaland. We should buy Haaland. I'd love us to sign Erling Haaland. And there's no question in my mind that Arsenal can afford the release clause, can afford the price that he's going to move for. But Arsenal won't be the only club that triggers that. Arsenal won't be the only club that are capable of paying the money that Borussia Dortmund want. The problem arises when Erling Haaland sits down with his agent and gets given a folder with 6, 7, 8 different offers from clubs that are simply competing at the highest level right now when we're not. That's where the problem comes, mate. You know, we tried to sign Dusan Vlahovic for big money. It's clear that Arsenal had the money. It's clear that Arsenal can afford it. But he chose to join Juventus because Juventus, in my opinion, despite having an awful season this season, are going to be back right at the top of Serie A again next season, in my opinion, challenging for the Scudetto. So it's not just about money. Like, I can afford to buy, you know, I don't know. Let's say, for example, I could afford to buy a horse. You know, I might not be the only person that can afford to, no, that's a shit example. Let me start again. I go in and I make an offer for a house. Okay. I might be able to raise the money to purchase that house. So can 10 other buyers. The seller has the decision who they're going to sell it to. This is not always in our hands. It's not always, you know, something that simple. It's not always something that you have full control of. I remember when I bought my place, there was somebody that came and viewed it on the same day as me. And I spoke to the owners afterwards and I said, look, guys, really like the place. I'm going to make an offer. The other people made an offer of the exact same amount of money as me, but the seller said, you know what, this guy was going to buy it as an investment. This guy was going to buy it so that he could, so that he can rent it out and do whatever. You're a young couple looking to start a family. That's what we were when we moved into this place. So we'd prefer it to go to you. And I know this is not a football transfer, but the point I'm trying to make here is that you can afford something, but that doesn't always mean that you're going to get it, because there's other factors that come into a deal being done. And even more so in a big, complex transfer that's worth millions and millions of pounds. It's not as simple as that. I don't think for a second Mikel Arteta wants to sign second-rate players. He'd much rather have the best players that he could possibly get his hands on, I'm sure, in order to increase his chances of success. Let's take a couple more of your thoughts. Tony says, do people not listen? I said, if we could, if we had ambition, we don't, so we won't. There is ambition at the football club now, you know, but you got to be realistic about what we're able to do. You know, and we don't have a Roman Abramovich. We don't have a royal family from the Middle East, you know, oil rich, who are willing and happy and open to throwing tons of money at the club. We are where we are. You know, and people will say, oh, you know, we don't have ambition. We don't have ambition. We're going to see that over the next few years because we've invested a lot of money. You could argue that we need more to get to where we want to be. But let's see how this thing develops. And listen, Haaland's not the only striker in the world. Like, it really irritates me when fans like attach themselves to one player as if no other player could possibly do a good job for Arsenal. That's not the way football works. If it was, there'd only be one decent 11 of players and everybody else would be awful and never be able to compete. So I just don't get it. I don't get the obsession. Of course, I'd love Haaland. I said it on a show yesterday that if I could pick, someone asked me what my ideal signing would be. I said Haaland. But it's out of our hands. We are able to afford it. I'm sure of that. But it's not just the transfer fee. It's the wages. It's the salary. Can we afford that without impacting on the rest of the group and limiting what we can then do in the transfer market? Will Haaland choose us? There are so many factors that come into these deals that people just seem to overlook. This is not Football Manager. Innie says, hey, Harry, I think the only thing attractive about Dybala is that he's free. Not sure he upgrades the team to the degree we need. Yeah, look, I think he does upgrade the team. I think he does add a quality that, you know, at times we've been missing. I think he adds a bit of depth. And I think the fact that he's free means that you can almost justify bringing him in on maybe a slightly higher salary with a view to him being depth and with a view to him being a squad player because of the fact that we're not paying a transfer fee. But again, it doesn't mean when they say free transfer, it is a free transfer in the sense of no money will be exchanged between Juventus and Arsenal. But it isn't always as simple as that. As we know, there is a lot of other things as signing on fees and lots of other stuff. Right, let's move on from the Dybala stuff because we're getting a bit stuck on this, I think. Actually, let me just take this one more point because this is brilliant. From Matt Tomo, who says, would you feel the same about Dybala if he were, say, 25, 30 million? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't be looking at him for 25, 30 million because I think that's too significant of an investment to make on a player that, although has a lot of positives, has a lot of negatives, and there's a lot of risk in that as well. So I don't think that I would spend like such a significant amount of money on him. But if, for example, we signed him on a 2-year deal that was going to cost us, I don't know, £10 million, I think that might be worthwhile. And I'm talking about in terms of wages and whatever you have to pay in terms of sort of signing on things and add-ons and clauses. If it was going to cost us about £10 million to bring him in for a couple of seasons, I would try it. Because I think that although there is a lot of risk and although there are red flags that I've mentioned time and time again on this episode, there are positives that he can bring to the table as well. Just going back to Tony just very quickly, because I feel like I need to shut this point down. He says, how can people say it's not Football Manager when they claim Newcastle will be world class when they spend all their money? People that claim that are equally as clueless, mate, because that's not the case, is it? Newcastle United, when you look at the players that they brought in January, despite having all the riches in the world, that was proof that actually, although some of those signings have worked out really well, that was proof that actually you need to build before you're at a point where you're an attractive proposition to everybody. They can afford anyone. You know, they went after Unai Emery. They couldn't get him. He didn't want to know. He wasn't interested. He didn't want to leave Villarreal to go to Newcastle to fight for relegation. And he didn't believe that the project was at the point where he would make the jump. Will he do it in the future? Maybe. Don't know. But the point here is that Newcastle will have to get there slowly and gradually. Newcastle will have to build, and they have all the money in the world. So Arsenal, who also need to build and don't have all the money in the world, are not just going to be able to identify the very elite players in the world and go, bang, we'll get them. And if they don't get them, everybody goes, oh, it's a lack of ambition. No, some things are out of your control. If Arsenal had signed Dan Burn, Chris Wood, Matt Targett, just some of the players that Newcastle signed in that window, we'd have all been losing our minds, which proves that it isn't Football Manager. It's nothing like that. And people who say that it is, or believe that Newcastle United are going to challenge for the Premier League next season, I think are living on another planet. I've got to be honest. Okay, right. Let's move on anyway. But before we do that, just a quick reminder, if you haven't hit the like button already, what on earth are you waiting for? And we've only got 56 likes on the board, but there's nearly 300 of you watching us. So please, please do smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Okay, we're going to take a short pause. Tony, I didn't say that you said that. That's not what I said. Listen back to what I said. Anyway, we're going to take a short pause and we'll be moving on to the next topic for today. Okay, welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast, part of the 90 Min Football Network. Before we continue to press on with today's press review, I just want to bring your attention to our partners over at Football Prizes. The good people over there have another Arsenal prize up for grabs, and this time it's an Alexander Lacazette signed and framed Arsenal shirt, plus the opportunity to win 8 instant win prizes. The tickets are £2.95. There's 199 of them available. And at present, the competition ends on Monday, the 2nd of May at 7:30 p.m. However, what I would say is if you are interested in this, jump on it quickly, because despite at the time of recording, there being 2 days, 7 hours and 52 minutes remaining on this one, 121 of the 199 tickets have already been sold, which means if you don't get there quick enough and the tickets sell out before that closing date, then it's simple, you miss out. Some of the instant win prizes available to our listeners and viewers are the Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang signed and custom framed Arsenal shirt, a Liam Brady signed and framed Arsenal montage, some Arsenal club shop vouchers, and some Football Prizes site credit. So lots to get your hands on. Do get involved. It is for UK residents only. Right, let's go back to the chat. Lots of you coming up with the John Knight, North London forever. Love it. You know what? Let's talk a little bit about that just quickly, because a lot of people have been asking me, what my thoughts are and what my opinion is on this song, which is called Angel, I think. Which is a really nice song. You know, fair play to the guy. I think it's brilliant. By Louis Dunford. People are talking about it becoming Arsenal's new anthem. Our You'll Never Walk Alone. Our I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles, whatever you want to call it. And I quite like it. I like the idea of it. I think it's the type of song that can be a good football song that would sound brilliant, I think, being sung by a full stadium, etc., etc. So yeah, I'm well behind it. You know, as always, though, with these types of things, you need to give them a bit of time. Like I do think it's caught on enough on Twitter to the point where we're probably going to hear it at the London Stadium tomorrow when Arsenal play. So I think that the word is out there, but for it to really be embedded and become embedded as part of Arsenal culture, if you like, it needs a bit of time, doesn't it, to sort of catch on and to become a part of our identity. So yeah, gonna be interesting to see how that goes. But I'm all for it. I think it's a brilliant tune. I really, really do. Okay, let's move on and let's talk about Gabriel Jesus, another player being heavily linked with a move to Arsenal. And the update that I wanted to bring you guys is from David Ornstein, who says that although it's pretty much what we already know, but although nothing has really taken place in terms of talks between the two clubs, talks seem to be, and he believes them to be, at an advanced stage between Edu and Gabriel Jesus's representatives, which is positive, right? Because you feel like if Man City are bringing in Erling Haaland, which will upset Tony in the chat, then they're going to need to clear the decks. They're going to need to make room for a striker. Gabriel Jesus, I think, has been incredibly patient at Manchester City. He's not had the game time he would have liked, but even still, I think he's impressed throughout his time there. I think they'd be quite open to letting him go. I think Pep Guardiola would be open to it, and I think that his relationship with Mikel Arteta means that, I think there'll be a bit of goodwill there in the negotiations. Now, I know when it comes to business and when it comes to money, those things don't always count for an awful lot, but I do believe that Arsenal are in a good position to negotiate with Manchester City over that. And I'm quite confident and quite hopeful that if this is a deal that Arsenal really, really want, really want to do, then it's one that is doable. And when you hear it from sort of outlets in Brazil, you're a little bit like, I like it, but let's see where this goes. You're always a little bit reluctant. I'm not saying it's done. I'm not saying it's 100%. I'm not saying that it's already over the line, but you do take a bit more encouragement, don't you, when you hear people like David Ornstein coming out. Look, no journalist gets everything right, because a journalist is only as good as the information that's passed on to them. I'm still a relatively new journalist. I'm still someone who's learning. I'm still someone who's trying to find my way. I'm still someone who is like building up contacts, developing. I never claimed to be an ITK. I've been passed 3 bits of information, probably in 3 years, that I believe to have been from a credible source. One of them was the score and scorers from a behind closed doors friendly, which was spot on. One of them was that Arsenal made inquiries in order to try and get Alexander Isak towards the back end of the January window, but then were put off by the money that Real Sociedad was asking. And then the other one was again something over a contract negotiation. So if I say that I've been told something, I say it because I genuinely believe that there's legs to it. I'm not one of these people that's like, let me throw loads of shit at the wall and hoping something will stick, and then I'll get that bit of credit, and all of a sudden people will look at me as a source. I'm not interested in being an ITK. I'm not that type of journalist. I'm not that type of content creator. I'm someone who shares my opinions and my views on stuff, as opposed to sort of running the rat race, trying desperately to get ahead of everyone, because I'd never win on that, because I'm not as connected. I don't have that line into the club like some of the big name journalists do. So back to my point, when you hear somebody like David Ornstein, as I say, come out and talk about this, then you do feel a little bit better about it. Tony, just give it a rest, then. Like do you know what, Tony? Let's do a phone-in show. Would you be up? Let me know in the chat. Would you be up for either? I won't be able to do it on Sunday, but would you be up for on Monday night jumping on a phone-in show? Because I want to hear from people whose opinions differ to mine. I want to be educated. I want you to tell me why you're feeling the way you're feeling, because you seem to have really, really strong views. And there's lots of you in the chat that do on a regular basis. You're all welcome to come on. Should we do it? Let's do it on Monday night. I want to hear the alternative point of view. So what I will do is I will get that all set up. Keep an eye on the feed, the YouTube feed, for notifications. Keep an eye on the Twitter feed at Harry Symeou and at Chronicles _AFC. And I will give you guys the opportunity to join me on Monday night and have your say, because I really don't get why people are so critical of Arsenal today. You know, like, look, if we fall apart in the hunt for the top four, which we threatened to do a few weeks ago, and I understood all the negativity and all the toxicity then, but we're right back in it now. We're in a good position. And I don't really understand why so many fans don't want to enjoy when we're on the up, don't want to enjoy when we're in pole position to achieve something that the same people were telling me at the start of the season was impossible to achieve. So that really doesn't make sense to me. Inter says it's not toxicity. Well, what is it, mate? Because at the start of the season, you in particular, as well as a load of other people, told me that we'd be lucky if we finished 8th, 9th, 10th. And we're in the hunt to finish 4th. We're in 4th place. So, I mean, what if you thought we were so bad? How can you possibly complain about where we are now? That's what I don't get. I don't get how your standards can go. You know, you always say, oh, my standards are, or these types of people always say, I want Arsenal to win titles. Don't we fucking all? We all do. But I also want to spend the night with Jennifer Lopez. Is that going to happen? No. Why is it not going to happen? Because I'm not at that level. I ain't got the money to get anywhere near her. I ain't got the body. I ain't got anything. That's my point. Like, I think that, you know, Arsenal are in a process. People hate that term, but it's true. I think that we had to get the appointment after Wenger right, and we got it wrong. And we ended up in a place where we then went back a few steps and had to make it, or had to change, had to shift, had to adapt the entire outlook and start from scratch. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. You know, and I don't get why people think it's going to happen overnight. One thing I will say is this. The same people were giving me shit when I said that Unai Emery wasn't the right man for Arsenal. And within 18 months, he was no longer the Arsenal manager. Because of a lot of the reasons that I highlighted at the time. Now, I'm not being cocky and I'm not being arrogant and I'm not blowing my own trumpet. That's not what this is. But the point is that I want people to come and give me reasons why they're unhappy and not just say, oh, we're shit. We've got no ambition. We haven't won a title since 2004, blah, 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 blah. Get into the crux of it. What is the issue? Who is the issue? What's the problem for you? I want to know why you're feeling the way that you feel. I want to know the crux of it. I want to understand it. You know, I said about, you know, Emery, that was right. I said that we shouldn't have sacked Arteta and that we've got to give him until the end of the season. And if we finish in the top 4, there's not a single person out there who could say that we've had a bad season, because that is way more than most people predicted. That is way more than anybody thought we were capable of. So you'd have to admit that he overachieved, in which case, what are you moaning about? You'd have to admit he overachieved because you said we'd finish 8th. You have to admit that he's overachieved if he gets in the top 4, because some of you said we'd be in mid-table. Some of you were even saying at the start of the season that we were going to get relegated, for God's sake. So, you know, it's like when you're going through what Arsenal are going through now, and when you're at the point that Arsenal are at right now, where you feel like there is improvement, you feel that connection again, but you recognize there's still a lot more work to do. The way that you cope with that as a fan and the way that you stay balanced and grounded is that the highs are never too high and the lows should never be too low. We beat Chelsea, we beat Man United, great, but you didn't catch me running around the street partying about it. Equally, we lost the 3 games before that, and it was upsetting and it was frustrating, but it wasn't the end of the world. Like the highs are not as high as you think, and the lows are not as low as you think. There needs to be a balance. That's how you make rational decisions. That's how a football club need to be. They need to look at the bigger picture, not be knee-jerk like so many people out there that follow the club. One week we should sack him. The next week we shouldn't. You know, people banging on about Antonio Conte. Go get Antonio Conte. Go get Antonio Conte. The guy is flirting with Paris Saint-Germain now. The guy is telling people, there was some quotes that Fabrizio Romano put out where he said, you know, I don't want to compete for 7th or 8th next season. I want to be at the highest level. Again, shitting on Spurs, shitting on his employer, shitting on his club. Like, there's, for me, it's strange to understand sort of where all this negativity comes from. Inter says you were singing Super Mick Arteta after beating Chelsea. Yes, I was, about that game, because I was at that game and I loved every minute of it and I enjoyed it and it was brilliant. Why can't I sing an Arsenal song? But it doesn't mean that I thought we were going to win the Premier League title straight after that. In fact, if you listen to the podcast I put out when I got home late that night, I said that, there is a lot that needs to be worked on, and we weren't perfect and we weren't flawless, and there are a lot of issues. I just think that everybody's entitled to their opinion, but what I want people to come and talk to me about it, and let's discuss it in detail. Let's get to the reasons why you're feeling this way, as opposed to everyone just going, this manager's shit, this manager's a cone boy, this manager's that, this manager's this, blah, 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 Edu's this, Edu's that, this player's crap, this, da, 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 da. Give me a good, in-depth, analytical breakdown of why you feel the way you do. And I will, even if I disagree, I will respect the opinion. I don't respect people popping up and going, oh, we're shit, we're this, we're that. We've got no ambition. We've got no ambition. Liverpool didn't win a title for 30 years. I never saw the Liverpool fans turning on their club the way that some of our fans are so willing to do so quickly. But anyway, listen, Monday night, let's do a phone-in show. Tony, Inter, and anybody else that feels that way, you are more than welcome to come on and have your say live on the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. I'd love to hear from you. I disagree with a lot of what you say, but it doesn't mean I don't respect you. It doesn't mean I don't respect other people's views. Let's have it. Let's do it Monday night. I'll keep you posted. Okay. We're going to leave it there, I think. We've been going for around about 45 odd minutes. Nearly 300 of you in live chat, but we've only got 92 likes on the board, guys. Let's get that well over the 100 mark. Let's quickly round up what we heard in today's press review. So the first thing is, of course, Arsenal supposedly in the race for Paulo Dybala. Will we do a deal for the Argentine? Is he someone that Mikel Arteta will feel can add something to the squad? Those are the reports doing the rounds at the moment. And then, of course, the update from David Ornstein on Gabriel Jesus. Talks, he believes, are at an advanced stage between Edu and the player, but doesn't believe anything has happened. It doesn't believe anything has happened between the two clubs at this moment. If you're wondering why I'm laughing, this super chat from Matt Tomo just come through. He says, use this money to get yourself a beer at the pub after Mrs. Symeou kicks you out of the house for that Jennifer Lopez line. Mate, I can assure you that with two kids and all the stuff that she does, my missus has not got time to tune into the Chronicles of a Gooner and won't be doing so anytime soon. But thank you so much, mate. Really, really do appreciate it. I will get myself a beer today in the sun. Right, I'll catch you all a little bit later on. Until then, take care of yourselves. Enjoy the sunshine. Enjoy your day without Arsenal. And it's back to the stress, back to the grind tomorrow. If I don't manage to get to the game, which it's looking unlikely, I will now. Tomorrow, then we will do a watch along for the match. So come and join me for that. I'll be bringing you commentary and my views throughout the game live on this channel. Should be good fun. We've had a great response to the watch alongs when we've done them before. So let's do it tomorrow. We'll start from the game kicks off at 4:30. So I reckon about 4:10, 4:15 we'll kick off, run through the team news, share some thoughts on that, and then I'll take you guys through the game. So please do come join me for that. Catch you all very soon. Until next time, goodbye.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.